Okay, this is first. Is it your first time coming to China?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think? How do you feel?
So far, I love it. I mean, I've seen very little. I got off a plane about 24 hours ago. I went straight to the Great Wall and now to dinner at a wonderful place last night, and I'm dazzled by everything. And people have been lovely, so it's a fantastic first impression.
So, any favorite Chinese food?
Oh goodness me. Well, I mean, we have it all the time, you know, in London. Favorite Chinese food would, I suppose I have a love of dim sum, you know, the soups, the hot and sour soups, the, you know, prawn and chive dumplings. I don't know, I could go on for hours, but
so you still try it?
Yeah.
When you first read this script, how do you think about this movie?
Well, I didn't start with the script. I started with a meeting with Matthew Vaughan and his descriptions. He showed me the comic book, and he told me about his ideas, but there was no script, so for a long time. So it was very much to do with approaching it, you know, as it was being developed. But the idea appealed to me. I have very quickly understood that he wanted to reference a kind of vintage, a self-aware, but very kind of astute, not just given over to nostalgia, but with a modern sensibility, reference to the kind of things that I think we missed. I think there was a tone that has been somewhat neglected in the way that spy movies have evolved, and we love them. And it's not just the modern evolution of Bond, but the Bourne films. They are kinetic and dark, visceral, you know, and quite paranoid, and they're to do with personal issues of isolation, and I think they speak to the modern taste and the modern issues, and I am devoted to those films. But it's completely left behind the old camp, kitsch, ironic, implausible Bond or action genre of the 60s and 70s, where people are going to the moon in ridiculous spacecraft and the villains are over the top.
Yeah, your role is kind of some, you know, old-fashioned spy.
Yeah.
So are you satisfied about your suit?
I love the suit. Yeah, I mean the suit was like a character in the movie. I mean, it basically could have walked around without me, and the film still would have worked. You know.
So please share some, you know, some of your unique experience during the shooting. Any memorable moment?
It's always impossible to suddenly pull out a single memorable moment when something is such a long, ongoing process. I mean, you know, learning to pretend to fight, I was dancing really, not fighting, but was totally new for me. And becoming a colleague of people whose business is gymnastics and martial art, I never thought was going to happen. I mean, you can meet people like this, but you don't expect to collaborate with what they do. So that was absolutely extraordinary. You know, and getting injuries that I would never expected to get under normal circumstances. And whenever I did get hurt, if there was a bruise or a broken tooth or something like that, their first instinct of the stunt guys was to take a picture. Not to get the nurse. It was like, no, we need to photograph the bruise because we need everybody to know that you did this yourself. The most hair-raising moment, really, I think, for anybody, was not a scene with me. It was happening in the studio next door, when the scene of the dormitory fills with water. They almost drowned everybody because it's a room that sinks into a tank, and it was supposed to sink to about waist height, but it kept going down and the camera crew and everybody went underwater, and the only way out was through a panel in the ceiling, which one person found, and they all managed to. So that could have been a very early end to the film.
So you watched this movie, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So which moment most like in this movie? Highlight.
To watch in watching the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, my favourite moments are all the moments I'm not in, because it's a lot easier for me to watch those. I don't know. There were things that I knew because I saw them in the script, but they surprised me when I saw the film. That I think one of my favourite scenes actually is the scene between Taron Egerton and Michael Caine at the very end. I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, but their last scene together, I think, is beautifully acted and actually very funny as well.
So please tell me more about your action training. You have lots of action scenes in this film.
Yeah, they sent a team of guys to my house at the beginning, in the garden of my house, and it was like learning a new language or something. I had to do all these rather painful exercises so that I could move my body in unfamiliar ways. And that was the beginning of 6 months, where I would have 3 hours every morning in a sort of gymnasium at the studio with all these athletes. And the first month or two was a little bit embarrassing and rather painful, but it soon became exhilarating.
And we know you keep your figure well, so could you please share some of your secret, fitness tips?
There's no secret. If anybody who spends 3 hours a day with 10 rather ruthless trainers and athletes is going to change their shape, I promise you.
So you work with Mark Strong in this film. How does it feel working with him?
Well, Mark's an old friend. It's always wonderful. I think we've done 4 or 5 films together now, and it's always good. And because acting is such a strange process, we're obviously pretending, and one of the things you have to pretend is intimacy with other people. You have to be friends with someone you met yesterday, or married to somebody you met yesterday, or kill somebody, or do a love scene, or something. And these are people you don't actually know. If you do know them, and you have a trust, and you have a shorthand in your language with that person, you cover a lot of ground very quickly. There's just a little bit less pretending because you know them, and there's a familiarity, and I think that shows on the screen.